What does the future hold? And in these troubled and turbulent times, this question has not been more pressing. And of course, we can't really predict all the specifics because that would be impossible. But we can make informed decisions, and that is exactly what I want to do in this video. And this video, I'm talking about the book 2030, how the biggest trends will collide and reshape the future of everything. Before we get into talking about the future and all that good stuff, do your boy just a little favor, that like button, yo, that like button. Enough said, so let's do it. In 1968, professors Paul and Anne Ehrlich released a book called Population Bomb, and in this book they talked about how if the human race kept procreating at its current rate, then the human race would soon overrun the planet. Fast forward more than 50 years and people are still worried about overpopulation, but rather than a baby boom, our biggest worry in 2030 might just be a baby drought. Since the 1970s, women generally have had fewer than 2 children each, and this pretty much means that there are fewer children to replace the current generation. What exactly is wrong with that? You see, a dwindling population might be good for the planet and its overtaxed resources, but the way our economic system works, we need that next generation to help take care of the elderly and help pay the pensions through their taxes. And now all over the world, from Brazil to Japan, governments are constantly asking who exactly is going to take care of their aging population in the coming decades. And why exactly is the birth rate declining? Well, women are just more active in the workforce, so they're likely to postpone having a family until they're established in their chosen fields. And you see, the thing is, fertility tends to decline with age, so women who do postpone having a family later on tend to have fewer children. And another reason is we're having less sex, and a study that was conducted by the Archives of Sexual Behavior actually found that 2010's Americans were having sex about 9 times less than Americans were in the 1990s. But why is that exactly? And the main reason is because of technology. Technology has just given us a whole host of options to do in our free time, and the thing is, sex has just become one of those many or plethora of options. Now onto weather and the climate change and all of that good stuff. Metropolises like Paris, New York, London, and Shanghai are all hotbeds for art, culture, and finance, but also inequality, pollution, and well, actual heat. Cities are warming at much faster rate than rural areas, and this is due to high concentration of concrete and asphalt. And you see, the thing is, these materials actually trap heat, which increases global warming. And these cities are hubs of congestion, consumption, and traffic. Actually, the global cities are responsible for about 75% of energy use and 80% of carbon emissions, and climate change undoubtedly will be felt most in cities. Cities account for about 1% of the world's land, yet 55% of the world's populations live in these cities, and about 75% of cities are near or close to coastline, which makes them especially vulnerable to rising sea levels. And Asian mega metropolises like Jakarta and Bangkok are especially at risk. And other places like Venice, New Orleans, and Miami all face immediate threat. So what can we do to mitigate this? And the good news is that if city dwellers just have small tweaks and adjustments in their behaviors, the ripple effects from these changes will be beneficial to the climate change as in its totality. But getting people to renounce old eco-unfriendly habits is extremely hard. And one solution for this is the cities can incentivize their citizens. And one example could be credit card fares on buses, or credit card facilities on buses, and making fares for public transportation much cheaper. And you all better prepare for an insanely rapid technological change in the coming years. And by the year 2030, or in the year 2030, we might not be commuting on flying cars per se, but we can expect a lot of technological change. And we might not have robot housekeepers like the Jetsons, but there has been a lot of progression and advancements in the field of AI, or artificial intelligence, and AI is very commonly widespread now. In the US, bots have replaced the duties of about 2 million workers, and by the year 2030, it said manufacturers will employ more programmers than they do laborers. What do the next 10 years hold for AI tech? And expect them in more cognitive fields. So by the year 2030, robots could be in professions like law and medicine, and more specifically, surgeons. And in about, I believe it's 2016, a robot actually performed a successful surgery on a small pig intestine. In the next decade, 3D printing will come into its own, and a range of things from plastics to dental supplies are expected to be 3D printed as opposed to manufactured. And coastal areas hit hard by global warming might actually 3D print seawalls to help stave off the rising tides. And they actually could also use 3D printing for artificial reefs so that they can help bolster the fish populations. And in China, some companies are actually making 3D printed homes, and this is amazing news for disaster relief efforts. And you all better get used to sharing, yo, I'm telling you. And this sharing economy is on the rise, and over time we're going to be owning less and sharing more. Imagine having a home on every continent and a car in every city that you visit. The catch is, they're not just yours. You actually, combined with everyone that wants to use said facilities, have to pay a particular amount or fee in order to use or access them. As you all know, this sharing economy is nothing new. We have companies like Uber and Airbnb that have gone from just startups to actual household names. We shouldn't really be so surprised at these companies' successes. These companies essentially rode a wave at the nexus of technological changes and changing consumer habits. And by 2030, about half of our spending will be collaborative consumption. And this is essentially just leveraging services that allow us to use a product without actually owning it. So things like songs, cars, but these aren't the only things that we'll be sharing. We'll be sharing workspaces with a mixture of firms and freelancers. We'll be paying each other's expenses through crowdfunding, and we'll be helping pay for each other's home loans and college education through peer-to-peer lending. And in this process, we'll be bypassing institutions like banks and real estate agencies. And in the coming decade, we will tap into the true potential of cryptocurrency. But before we get into that, let's take a trip down memory lane back to the 13th century when Italian explorer Marco Polo went to China. He was actually the very first European to set foot there. And while he was there, he saw amazing things that weren't actually in Europe quite yet, and things like gunpowder and porcelain. But the biggest thing that blew his mind was paper money. He actually saw people exchanging it with great formality, just like it was gold or silver. And these days, we're comfortable using money that are increasingly abstract from the value that they actually represent. So things like paper money, stocks, and bonds. Next revolution of currency is well underway. And by 2030, I mean, most likely even before 2030, the way things are going right now, yeah, cryptocurrency is soon to be in the mainstream. What is a cryptocurrency exactly? I mean, I've talked about this in a past video, so I'll just link it up there somewhere. Just talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is issued and dispersed online through a peer-to-peer system. And the blockchain system makes Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies the most secure form of currencies in the world. And up to now, most people haven't been tempted to abandon their current bank accounts and completely switch over to crypto. And that is completely understandable. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general, is just far too volatile right now. But blockchain technology could revolutionize the way we do all sorts of transactions. Example, when a contracted supplier finishes their work, they could just activate some code that automatically puts a certain amount of cryptocurrency in their account. The government could just automatically deduct the amount of tax through that crypto transaction. And this is just one of many potential cryptocurrency applications, but they will only come into fruition if we embrace it. There you have it. That is all. I am done, yo. And you know, the next decade will bring about insanely large changes to the world that we live in, and at incredible speed. So my piece of advice, as Bruce Lee once said, be like water, my friends. Be like water and be adaptable. And with that, I'm out.